Hi to the family. This episode is the follow-up to Sexy Part 1. We didn't know we were going to have Part 1 and Part 2, but this is Part 2A. We got some interesting feedback, and we want to share just one particular response that we got with you because we feel as though you would benefit from it. So stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll share that information with you.
Free clothes, free education, free electronics, free food, free everything. Can you afford free? Get free products for yourself. Give away free products to others. Get paid. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Visit our websites. Your pocket will thank you.
Welcome back. As we said in the opening, this is Sexy Part 2. We really weren't planning to do a Sexy Part 2, but we got some feedback that we need to really address. We got a lot of positive feedback, but there was some feedback that we got that we need to address because we want to make sure that you understand exactly the context of what we're saying and you keep that context in mind and don't take the statements that we make out of the context that they're intended to be in. We want you to leave comments as well, too. The comments that we got back were to my email, but what we would like you to do is leave comments either on the Love Chose You website or on Facebook. That way other people can see the comments that you leave. It doesn't matter whether those comments are positive or negative. Any response we appreciate, and if we need to get back to you, we will get back to you and we'll respond if your comment requires that we get back to you. So let's go into exactly what we are looking at for Sexy Part 2. And I will tell you, these videos, especially this one, is not for children. We're going to be dealing in this video with some heavy things. And it's for adults and for adult ears. So if you've had, some of the videos, your children can listen to. But if you're a young adult, of course, you need to listen to this. If you're contemplating marriage or you want to get married, that's not a problem at all. You can listen to these. If you're a young person, that's not a problem. But they're not for children, especially this video, Sexy Part 2. So let's get into some of the issues that were brought up in the correspondence that we got back. And we're going to read you a little bit of them so you can understand what's going on. But it's crucial that you understand the role of sex in a marriage and the role that sex plays in a marriage. Sex is important in marriage only because it is the only relationship biblically that you can have sex with another person with. There's no other relationship that you can have sex with a person with that you have. So this is the reason why you should never and you should not sleep with your parents. You shouldn't have sex with your siblings. You shouldn't have sex with your children. You shouldn't have sex with yourself. And you should not have sex with someone of the same gender as yourself. Because sex changes everything. And if you do, in any one of those situations except the marriage situation, it alters your perception, your perspective, and our limited understanding of God. When you take sex out of the marriage relationship and you have it in any other relationship but that one. And if you think that sex is not important, it's not the most important thing in marriage because there's several other areas which we are going to get into and have specific videos on during the course of these episodes. But if you think that marriage is not important in marriage, if you think that sex is not important in a marriage, then eliminate sex from the marriage. Let's say that you and your spouse are not experiencing sexual intimacy at all. And for some reason, you have decided, or one of you has decided, that because of some physical or emotional or mental or personal reason, we're no longer having sex in the marriage. Now, we're not talking about your wife being on her monthly cycle We're not talking about you getting an injury and, you just physically cannot be involved in a sexually intimate relationship with your wife or your husband. We're talking about, and we know you can handle that. We're talking about no sex, period, in a marriage relationship for a duration of time, or from that point on, we're not having sex in the marriage, whether it's mutually agreed upon or not. Unless you can handle that, you have left your spouse with some very important options, or with several options that they have to consider. Now, how important does sex become then if it's no longer a factor in the marriage? Again, the sexual relationship in marriage is that's the only relationship where you can biblically have sex. Now, you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm talking from a biblical perspective. Now you eliminate it. Now what are you going to do? It puts your spouse in a position involuntarily if you have not communicated with your spouse. If you haven't said, listen, this is what I want to do. And by the way, I don't know why you would want to do that in a marriage, because there's no place that I've seen or Delisa's seen, that we've seen, where you can biblically say, we're married and we're not going to have sexual relationship at all from this point on. There's no reason in the scripture. If you find one, I'd like you to contact us and let us know. But we haven't seen one yet, so we don't know why you would do that. But if you do that, you put your spouse in a very precarious position, because what are they going to do then? They actually have 5 options. And these 5 options, you tell me whether or not you want your spouse to consider any of these options. They can do nothing. If you haven't communicated with your spouse, you can do nothing, and you say you don't even talk about it. You just don't have sex with your spouse, or you do nothing. When I say don't have sex with your spouse, I mean you don't have sex, period. Now, that's an option. You can do that, and you can just be quiet and be silent because you haven't communicated with your spouse. You can do that. You could masturbate. That's an option. Now, that's a choice as well. Now, I don't know if you definitely don't want your spouse doing that, but that's an option because you're in a marriage relationship. And understand, since the marriage relationship is the only relationship where sex is allowed, that means that between a husband and wife there's sexual tension, and that's supposed to be there. It belongs there. And if you have sexual tension, that sexual tension has to be released. If you're no longer having sex, then what is your partner to do? They can do nothing. There are plenty of people who go without sex, whether it's in a marriage relationship or in a single relationship. But now they can masturbate. Or, number 3, with men, they can have what's called nocturnal emissions. Sometimes you heard of those as wet dreams. That's involuntary. You certainly don't want your husband having that as well. When in the marriage relationship, that's what the marriage is for the release of sexual tension. But the Lord designed men that way, so that if they're not married, that sexual tension the sperm can be released, and it's released during what's called a nocturnal emission, or men sometimes refer to it as a wet dream. Or your spouse can see somebody else. Or you can resume having sexual intimacy with your partner. Now, you tell me, which one of those 5 would you like your spouse to participate in? Because you've decided we're not going to have sex anymore. They've got 5 options. Now, this brings us to an email that we got, which we just need to address. And we got a lot of positive emails, but this one we want to address because it seems as though there's some issues that came up. And some of you may have these same issues. And you said, well, you just didn't write. You didn't comment on it. But this particular viewer says some very interesting things, and we're going to address them, all of them. This is going to be a 2-parter, obviously. So this is part 2, and part 3 is coming right after this one, next week. But here's what this viewer said. Okay, Internet family, we're going to stop right here. We want to keep to the 10-minute time limit, and we're going to ask you to join us next week for Sexy Part 2B, when we will continue answering this viewer on the concerns that they have. So join us next week, and we'll continue up. All right, we thank you for joining us, and remember, love chose you.